In the early years of the 21st century, a man from the modest rural district of Lempira in western Honduras began a political journey that would carry him to the highest office of his country. His name is Juan Orlando Hernández, a man who entered national politics in 1998, elected as a congressman representing his home department. Over time, through a combination of political maneuvering, alliance building, and electoral campaigns, he rose through the ranks, first becoming president of the National Congress, then eventually winning the presidency of Honduras. By 2014, he assumed the highest office in the land. Re-elected in 2017, he remained at the helm of the nation until January 2022. During Juan's presidency, he cultivated a public image acceptable to external partners, including important foreign powers concerned with drug trafficking and migration from Central America. On the surface, his administration projected cooperation, or so it appeared, with anti-narcotics efforts, security operations, and regional stability efforts. For decades, the international community had watched Honduras with concern, a small nation geographically positioned at the crossroads between South America and the United States, vulnerable to becoming a transit corridor for illicit narcotics. Observers and foreign governments alike tended to rely heavily on Honduras's cooperation, often emphasizing the symbolic importance of a stable US-aligned government in Tegucigalpa. Yet beneath this veneer of legitimacy, a darker reality reportedly took shape. Over time, patterns emerged. Certain individuals within law enforcement and the military were protected. Shipments reportedly passed through Honduras without interference. Accusations and rumors circulated that drug traffickers enjoyed protection and that illicit proceeds had funded political campaigns. These patterns, unconfirmed or dismissed for many years, would later form the basis of criminal charges. Thus, the ascent of Juan Orlando Hernández was not only built on votes and electoral victories, but, according to prosecutors, on a foundation of corruption, complicity, and betrayal of public trust. The unraveling began soon after his second term ended in 2022. Barely 3 months after leaving office, Juan was arrested at his home in the Honduran capital at the request of United States authorities. A warrant had been issued under a superseding indictment, charging him on multiple counts related to drug trafficking and weapons offenses. The United States government accused him of playing a central role in a massive and violent drug trafficking conspiracy that had operated out of Honduras for nearly 2 decades, dating back as far as 2004. Prosecutors alleged that during those years, through his various political offices, including his time as president, he abused his authority to facilitate the transit of enormous quantities of cocaine through Honduras, bound for markets in the United States. The indictment described a scheme in which he accepted millions of dollars in bribes from some of the largest and most violent trafficking organizations in the region, including organizations with networks spanning Honduras, Mexico, and beyond. According to the case brought by prosecutors, the cocaine flowed into Honduras, often from South American sources, via maritime or airborne routes, then traversed the country over land. To ensure safe and uninterrupted passage, traffickers allegedly relied on institutional protection, delay-free police or military escorts for shipments, advance warnings of planned interdictions, shielding of certain traffickers from arrest or extradition, and at times, violent enforcement by state-affiliated forces. The former president was accused of directing elements of the national police and military, as well as leveraging sensitive law enforcement and intelligence information to benefit the drug trafficking operations. In addition, the indictment alleged that those illicit proceeds were deployed to influence elections and consolidate political power. The bribe money was used to bankroll political campaigns, sway votes, corrupt election officials, and ensure victory in critical elections, including his own presidential bids. Thus, according to prosecutors, the path to power had been laid not purely through democratic legitimacy, but through systematic corruption tied to narcotics trade. Following Hernández's arrest by Honduran authorities on February 15, 2022, the United States formally requested extradition. The judicial process in Honduras played out. The Supreme Court rejected his initial appeal on March 28th. Shortly thereafter, a constitutional chamber dismissed a final appeal as inadmissible. By mid-April, Honduran authorities certified completion of extradition proceedings. On April 21st, he was surrendered to U.S. custody and transported to New York to face trial in a federal court. In March 2024, after a 2-week trial in a Manhattan federal court, a jury found him guilty on all counts of the indictment. The charges included conspiring to import cocaine into the United States, using and carrying machine guns and other illicit weapons during and in furtherance of that conspiracy, and conspiring to use such weapons. Prosecutors argued that the conspiracy had facilitated the movement of hundreds of tons of cocaine over nearly 2 decades. Evidence introduced at trial included drug ledgers, testimonies from convicted drug traffickers, and records tying payments to the former leader. Some co-conspirators, traffickers, and former police officials testified that they had paid him millions of dollars in bribes to secure protection and safe passage for drug shipments. One former trafficker under oath said that those payments were instrumental in guaranteeing an unimpeded cocaine pipeline through Honduras. Among those named in the conspiracy was his own brother, a former congressman, who had earlier been convicted in the same U.S. court system for drug trafficking. The scale of the trafficking was staggering. Prosecutors maintained that more than 400 tons of cocaine had been transported under the protection of this conspiracy during his time in power. The street value of that quantity of cocaine, if eventually sold in U.S. markets, was estimated in excess of $10 billion. At sentencing, the judge described the conspiracy in blunt terms, portraying the former president as a two-faced politician hungry for power, who turned the nation into a narco-state, enriching himself and enabling some of the world's deadliest drug trafficking organizations. In late June 2024, the court sentenced him to 45 years in prison and ordered an $8 million fine. The sentence marked a landmark moment, one of the rare instances in which a former head of state was prosecuted, convicted, and punished in United States courts for drug trafficking. Many in Honduras and abroad hailed the verdict as a powerful affirmation that no one, no matter how high their political rank, is beyond the reach of justice. A complex web of factors led to this dramatic downfall. At the institutional level, long-standing structural weaknesses in Honduras's political, judicial, and law enforcement systems played a key role. For years, the national police and military lacked effective oversight, and anti-corruption mechanisms were either weak or functionally circumvented. This institutional fragility allowed power holders to manipulate the system with relative impunity. At a deeper level, the allure of extraordinary wealth from narcotics trafficking created irresistible incentives. Cocaine, produced in South America, fetched enormous sums on the US black market. Traffickers were willing to pay vast amounts in bribes to ensure safe passage. For a politician with access to state resources, security forces, and influence over elections, the bribes represented a shortcut to consolidating and preserving power. The former president's rise thus became entwined with the narcotics economy. Illicit funds underwrote campaigns, bought loyalty, and facilitated the manipulation of electoral outcomes. Moreover, political ambition drove decision-making. From congressman to head of state, his climb coincided with, and prosecutors argued was enabled by, a growing partnership with drug traffickers. By the time he became president, the alliance had matured. Institutional machinery was redirected not for public security, but to safeguard drug shipments, shield traffickers, and silence potentially rival political and criminal actors. Finally, the transnational demand for cocaine, especially in the United States, provided a persistent external market. As long as demand remained high and supply chains survived, the incentives for corruption and collusion remained powerful. Honduras's geographical position between South America and North America made it strategically vital for trafficking networks, and the former president's political power turned the country into a vulnerable choke point for the narcotics flow. In combination, weak institutions, political ambition, large illicit profits, and regional demand for drugs formed a perfect storm. What began as an ordinary political career turned into a decades-long conspiracy with global reach. The conviction and sentencing of a former head of state on such charges sent shockwaves across Honduras, Central America, and beyond. For the people of Honduras, it laid bare the extent to which corruption had penetrated the highest levels of government. The judicial outcome offered a moment of reckoning, a painful acknowledgement that the state had sometimes served not the citizens, but criminal enterprises. For victims of drug-related violence that often spreads among communities, gangs, and rival cartels, the verdict represented a kind of delayed justice, though not one that could directly restore what was lost. Internationally, the case was interpreted as a landmark in global anti-narcotics and anti-corruption efforts. It demonstrated that even heads of state, once seen as untouchable, could be held accountable. The prosecution, carried out by a major U.S. federal court, resonated as a message from law enforcement authorities that transnational criminal networks will be pursued even at the highest levels of government, irrespective of nationality or diplomatic status. In diplomatic terms, the case exposed uncomfortable contradictions. For years, foreign partners, including the United States, had counted on the former president as an ally in regional security, anti-immigration, and counter-narcotics efforts. Yet, at the same time that support continued, behind the scenes, investigations and intelligence operations reportedly built a dossier implicating him in facilitating exactly the kind of crime that cooperation was meant to suppress. The conviction raised hard questions about foreign policy priorities, realignment, and the risks of engaging with corrupt but ostensibly cooperative regimes. Within Honduras, the fallout was profound. Citizens and activists renewed demands for deep institutional reform, greater transparency, accountability mechanisms, police and judicial reforms, stricter campaign finance controls, and genuine efforts to dismantle corruption networks. Yet the distrust was widespread. Many worried that such a dramatic case, rather than catalyzing reform, could instead deepen cynicism toward institutions, fueling resignation, political disengagement, or social unrest. For criminal networks and other corrupt actors, the verdict created uncertainty. On one hand, it signaled that no throne was beyond reach. On the other, it may have driven traffickers to reinvent tactics, using shell companies, more covert routes, money laundering, or shifting operations to regions with weaker enforcement. The disruption of a major trafficking nexus may have shifted but not ended the flows, forcing the criminal underworld to adapt. In sum, the conviction reshaped conversations about power, impunity, and justice, not only in Honduras, but across the Americas. It underscored that state capture by criminal enterprises is not simply a local problem. It is a transnational threat requiring vigilance, cooperation, and consistent enforcement of the rule of law. In late November 2025, the political narrative shifted dramatically. The former president, now serving a 45-year federal prison sentence in a U.S. penitentiary, was to be granted a full and complete pardon by the current U.S. President, Donald Trump. The clemency gesture stunned observers worldwide, triggering renewed debate on justice, accountability, and the politicization of pardons. The public explanation for the pardon stressed that many respected individuals believed the former president had been treated harshly and unfairly. The timing of the pardon, just days before a major national election in Honduras, and the fact that this decision was accompanied by overt endorsement of a conservative candidate aligned with the former president's political party, drew immediate scrutiny. Critics argued that the pardon was less about correcting injustice than about influencing electoral outcomes and reasserting political influence in the region. The act of granting clemency to a convicted narco-state architect, a man found guilty of facilitating the transit of hundreds of tons of cocaine and enabling violent criminal organizations, sent shockwaves across diplomatic and international law enforcement communities. For many, it undermined decades of work aimed at holding powerful individuals accountable for involvement in transnational crime. It risked weakening the moral and strategic position of nations that have sought to combat narcotics trafficking, corruption, and state collusion, raising questions about whether justice can be overridden by political expediency. In Honduras, reactions were deeply polarized. Among supporters, the pardon was seen as a vindication, as if the former president had been victimized by political enemies or foreign interference. Among opponents, including victims of cartel-linked violence, anti-corruption activists, and many ordinary citizens, the decision felt like a betrayal, a confirmation that a man who once ruled the nation with near impunity could still emerge unscathed after a criminal conviction, so long as political winds favored him. Internationally, the pardon reignited concerns about the integrity of global anti-drug efforts and the credibility of judicial verdicts when confronted with political power. It raised uncomfortable questions. If even a 45-year sentence for massive drug trafficking can be undone, what does that mean for deterrence, for victims, for future prosecutions of high-level figures? For Honduras, the future suddenly became uncertain. The pardon risked reigniting old divisions, emboldening corrupt networks, and undermining reform efforts. It threatened to erode trust in international cooperation and to signal that the rule of law remains fragile, subject to political convenience. Moreover, the pardon cast a long shadow over the victims of drug-related crime, not only those in Honduras, but across communities in the United States and elsewhere affected by the distribution of illicit narcotics. For many, the sense of justice delivered by the conviction now feels hollow, overshadowed by the political decision to restore freedom. The story of this former leader is emblematic of how power, when unchecked and intertwined with illicit economies, can erode the foundations of the state. His rise demonstrated how deeply criminal networks can infiltrate political structures. His conviction revealed the possibility of accountability, Yet the subsequent pardon demonstrates the fragility of that accountability when legal verdicts intersect with geopolitical strategy, political alliance, and electoral calculations. The narrative raises fundamental questions about the role of clemency in a world where global drug trafficking, state corruption, and political influence often form overlapping spheres. Pardons, traditionally reserved for mercy, correction of injustice, or extraordinary circumstances, become controversial when applied to individuals convicted of facilitating mass criminal enterprise, especially where such individuals once held the highest office. It also challenges the assumption that conviction alone suffices for justice. For victims of violence, corruption, displacement, and societal decay wrought by drug trade, the reversal of their trafficker's conviction may feel like a denial of justice. For societies seeking to rebuild institutions, it may seem like a reaffirmation that power ultimately trumps accountability. At a geopolitical level, the decision may embolden others who sit at the nexus of political power and illicit profit, provided they align with certain strategic interests. It may weaken deterrence, distort incentives, and undermine international efforts aimed at dismantling drug networks. Yet, the case also remains a warning, a cautionary tale. It underscores that long-standing patterns of state capture, institutional collusion, and corruption can indeed be exposed, prosecuted, and judged, even against heads of state. It affirms that legal systems, when functioning, can reach beyond borders and titles. But it also shows that the stability of verdicts ultimately depends on sustained political will, moral clarity, and resistance to opportunistic interference. The full implications of the pardon may only become clear in years to come. Whether Honduras will relapse into old patterns of corruption, whether reform efforts will survive, whether victims will see restitution, and whether the broader fight against transnational drug trafficking will suffer irreversible damage. What remains certain is that the line between public service and criminal enterprise was crossed, and the attempt to erase that crossing has reopened wounds that many believed finally had been cauterized. In the end, this episode, this chapter, the rise, the fall, the conviction, the pardon, stands as a stark reminder of how fragile justice can be when power, politics, and profit converge. The story of this leader's trajectory is more than a biography. It is a cautionary tale about the perils of mixing public trust with illicit gain, and the perilous consequences when those who wield state power betray it for corruption. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis helpful, consider supporting the channel by subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss future deep dive history and politics features. Your engagement helps these long-form investigations reach more viewers and keeps independent research moving forward. Feel free to explore the other videos on the channel for more context, connected stories, and comprehensive breakdowns. Until next time, take care, stay informed, and keep questioning the forces that shape our world.